Aliens from space, called parasites, land on Earth and start taking control of certain humans' brains to survive. Meanwhile, we meet our guy, Shinichi, a good-for-nothing disappointment, to the point where he cannot even look at his mother in the eyes. He once tried to be Dora and ended up falling in the kitchen, to the point where his mother had to burn herself just to save him from a boiling pot of oil. He's fast asleep when suddenly, one of these parasites tries to get into his brain. But there's a twist. Shinichi has earphones on, so the parasite can't get in through his ear. It goes for his nose instead, but he sneezes it out, waking up in a hurry. Shinichi sees the squirming parasite and mistakes it for a snake. In a panic, he grabs a notebook to squash it. However, the parasite manages to dig into Shinichi's hand, attempting to crawl its way to his brain from there. Thinking on his feet, Shinichi uses his earphones as a makeshift bandage to stop the parasite's progress. Right at that moment, his parents rush into the room, startled by the noise. Shinichi explains that a snake got into his hand. But when his parents look around, they don't see anything unusual. So, they figure he must have been having a wild dream. The next day arrives, and Shinichi wakes up, seemingly back to normal. Shinichi joins his parents for breakfast. During the meal, he mentions that his hand feels numb. His mom offers him a full breakfast, but he decides he'll only eat bread. This worries his mom because he's not eating like he used to. Suddenly, a spider appears on the table, and Shinichi freaks out. He's really scared of bugs. After breakfast, Shinichi heads to school. On his way, his childhood friend Murano tries to surprise him with a punch, but he unconsciously blocks her with his right hand. He's just as surprised as she is. However, Murano thinks he's just playing around and knew she was there. Shinichi tries to explain, but things take an awkward turn. He accidentally touches Murano's chest when trying to explain, and she gets mad and slaps him before storming off. Right then, another childhood friend, Takakawa, picks up his glasses and asks why he did that. Shinichi can only shrug and say he doesn't know. The school day goes on, and Shinichi starts dozing off in class. He gets caught using his phone, which isn't allowed, and the teacher scolds him. After school, Shinichi heads home and notices a girl about to get hit by a car. Without thinking, he rushes in and stops the car. It's in this moment that he realizes his hand has changed somehow. So, when he gets home, he's feeling really overwhelmed. As soon as he's in his room, he takes out a knife, thinking of piercing his right hand. But then, something incredible happens. His hand changes into a face-like shape, like a humanoid called Miggy. This is the same parasite that ate his hand earlier. Miggy explains the situation. Shinichi's hand is now part of him. Shinichi starts laughing at the absurdity of it all, and then he tries to attack Miggy. But Miggy easily stops him. Curious, Shinichi asks Miggy what it really is. Miggy, however, says he's tired and falls asleep. After this, Shinichi attempts to find answers on the internet about what's happening to him. But he doesn't find any useful information, so he decides to give up for the moment. The next day, something surprising happens. Shinichi realizes that Miggy has been learning and can now speak more fluently. Miggy shares that he doesn't really know where he's from. All he remembers is that he's upset he didn't make it to Shinichi's brain. Worried, Shinichi asks if Miggy plans to take his brain now. Miggy explains that it's not possible, because he matured without consuming Shinichi's brain. It's too late for that. Miggy then reveals something crucial. If they were separated, the parasite would die, and Shinichi would lose his arm. So, for now, they need to work together and find a way to coexist. Shinichi joins his parents for breakfast, and he surprises his mom by asking for more food than usual. Meanwhile, his dad tunes into the news, and they learn that there are violent incidents happening all over the nation. These incidents are caused by other parasites that have taken control of people's minds and are eating anyone they come across. As if on cue, a spider shows up on the table. But instead of panicking, Shinichi calmly picks it up and tosses it away. He then heads off to school, but this time he takes a different route. Right then, Miggy wakes up and asks him where he's headed. He's going to the police station. Miggy advises against it, worried it might cause problems for both of them. But their conversation is cut short when Miggy senses the presence of another parasite. Shinichi wants to know how Miggy can tell, and he explains that he can feel the presence of his own kind and judge how far away they are. After walking a bit, Shinichi starts to feel scared and considers turning back. But Miggy stops him, insisting that they need to find out exactly what's happening, so they decide to push forward. In an alley, they stumble upon a parasite controlling a dog, which is in the process of eating another dog. The dog, now a host to the parasite, communicates with Shinichi, admitting discomfort in using an animal as its host body. Right then, Miggy alerts Shinichi to the danger. The dog parasite wants to take control of his brain. They quickly make a plan and decide to face the threat head-on. They wait for the dog parasite in a park, aiming to eliminate it. As the confrontation unfolds, the dog parasite transforms into a winged creature and chases after them. But before it can harm them, Miggy undergoes a transformation as well. With swift precision, Miggy tears out the parasite's heart, ensuring that Shainish's life, and by extension, Miggy's existence, is preserved. After their intense encounter, Shainishi decides he won't go to the police anymore without Miggy's protection, fearing he'd be an easy target for other parasites. Later, during school, Shainishi joins a basketball game in PE class. Takakawa suggests that if he makes the next shot, it might help mend things with Murano. With Miggy's assistance, Shainishi pulls off a dunk just before the game ends. Following the game, Takakawa arranges a moment for Murano and Shainishi to talk alone. Shainishi apologizes, and Murano hints that she might forgive him if they go on a cake date someday. Shainishi agrees, but Miggy notices Shainishi's earlier desire for a more intimate relationship with Murano, which embarrasses Shainishi. Their conversation gets interrupted by Nagai, another classmate who also likes Murano. Nagai challenges Shainishi to a fight, and despite a rough start, Miggy intervenes and incapacitates Nagai, saving Shainishi. Afterward, Takakawa brings up the troubling news about the spreading ground flesh murders worldwide. This prompts Shainishi to head home and investigate. While there, Miggy explains that these murders are being committed by parasites that arrived from space. This revelation prompts Shainishi to question whether it's right for them to remain passive observers, given that they are the only ones who truly understand the situation. He suggests they should inform the police. However, Miggy cuts in, asserting that he doesn't comprehend their moral perspective. He believes the parasite's behavior is just a natural part of their survival, eating to live. Shainishi counters, emphasizing the importance of human life. But Miggy still struggles to empathize, stating that he's primarily concerned with his own survival. Miggy does mention that his kind has a much more controlled appetite than humans, though Shainishi asks him to drop the subject. Feeling conflicted, Shainishi goes outside to get some fresh air and notices a boy carelessly wasting his food. Miggy senses the presence of another parasite nearby. In response, Shainishi decides to head to an isolated location, thinking that if he's pursued, he might be able to face the enemy. Once he's alone, the parasite appears. Miggy warns Shainishi that if the enemy attacks its own host, it would lead to both of them being killed. But this parasite realizes Miggy's weakened state and proposes something unexpected, merging into the same body. The parasite transforms, tearing off its own right arm. It suggests that if it joins with Shainishi's arm, they'll become more powerful and could potentially live for many years. The parasite then asks Shainishi to kill the human they're inhabiting, but growing impatient, it decides to do it itself. Miggy intervenes, preventing the attack and ultimately killing the intruding parasite. Shainishi is puzzled and asks Miggy why he saved him. Miggy's response is straightforward. He wasn't sure if the merging would truly work, so he prioritized his own survival over anything else. A few days later, Shainishi goes out with Murano to enjoy some cake. They stroll along together, and she opens up about how her parents were hesitant to let her go out due to the recent surge in murders. They eventually arrive at a park where they encounter some boys. Unfortunately, these boys are engaged in the cruel act of throwing stones at a cat, which greatly upsets both Shainishi and Murano. In response, Shainishi approaches the cat, rescuing it from the sand, and lectures the boys about treating animals with respect as living beings, not playthings. The boys, however, react with revenge by aiming their stones at Shainishi. Undeterred, Shainishi easily thwarts their attempts and even issues a warning, leaving them scared and shaken. As Shainishi contemplates his discussions with Miggy, he starts to realize that human nature isn't always as kind as it may seem. However, his thoughts are interrupted when Murano reaches for his hand. She notices something peculiar about his right hand and instead takes his left hand. She questions if he's truly Shainishi Izumi, and he affirms that he is. The following day, Shainishi heads to school, and right before he gets there, Miggy alerts him that there's a new parasite nearby. Surprisingly, this parasite is in their school. Soon after, the students are gathered in the auditorium. The principal steps forward and introduces the new math teacher, Tamiya. In a surprising twist, Miggy tells Shainishi that Tamiya is the parasite they sensed. As she introduces herself, Miggy confirms her true identity to Shainishi. Eager to get a closer look, Shainishi attempts to make eye contact with Tamiya. However, she immediately senses him as a fellow parasite. The auditorium event wraps up, and Miggy comments that Tamiya is incredibly clever. She's managed to blend in seamlessly with human society, keeping her host's place intact. Miggy adds that Tamiya seems to want to avoid causing harm within her social circle for the time being, aiming to fit in among humans. Following that, Shinichi attends Tamiya's class, where she acts just like any regular teacher. She assigns some textbook problems to the students and then approaches Shinichi. Standing beside him, she inquires why he hasn't completed the problems, which surprises Shinichi. Quickly, he apologizes for it. As the class ends, Tamiya asks Shinichi to visit the counseling office. There, she eases his tension, assuring him she has no intention of harming him. She expresses a desire to talk more and suggests a meeting after school. Tamiya reveals she's curious about him since he's the first case of his kind she's encountered. She wants to share information. Later, at a coffee shop, Shinichi meets his teacher, only to notice she's accompanied by another parasite named A. After some conversation, Tamiya asks Shinichi for his opinion on what they are. He responds that they're creatures that eat humans. Tamiya then discloses that she had a sexual relationship with A and is now pregnant. She quizzes Shinichi again about what's growing inside her. Miggy interrupts, asserting that it's a normal human. Tamiya confirms this and revisits her earlier question about their nature. However, Shinichi remains uncertain and steers the conversation to learn more about them. During the discussion about their origins, abruptly stands up, deciding to leave. He believes that comprehending their identity won't change anything. As he departs, he starts to see Shinichi as a threat that should be eliminated. Tamiya informs Shinichi of her desire to maintain her human facade. She assures him she won't resort to drastic actions unless he forces her hand. However, she chillingly warns that if he opposes her, she'll wipe out their entire class, leaving Shinichi deeply concerned. The very next day, Shinichi returns to Tamiya's class, but suddenly, both Tamiya and Miggy sense the presence of this other parasite is out to kill Shinichi within the school. Starts eliminating any teachers in his way. Consequently, the principal announces that everyone must evacuate due to an intruder. Shinichi and his classmates begin to make their way out. Miggy proposes an audacious plan to Shinichi, using their classmates as distractions. While A is preoccupied with them, Shinichi can move swiftly to attack A's heart. Despite the plan, Shinichi decides he can't let his friends get hurt and chooses to confront A alone. Later, Shinichi arrives in a deserted hallway and starts barricading himself with tables. Miggy advises him that it doesn't see them as separate entities, so they might be able to exploit that. Miggy breaks a metal bar from a chair and hands it to Shinichi, suggesting they fight together. They realize that it is one floor below. Miggy helps Shinichi climb through a window to get to A more easily, sidestepping the barricades. In that moment, A launches an attack on Shinichi. However, Miggy steps up to shield Shinichi and takes charge of the offense. He guides Shinichi in advancing towards their foe, relying on their partnership. Gradually, they make their way to A, and with the metal bar, Shinichi strikes a blow right into A's chest, inflicting a deadly wound. The move leaves A both wounded and perplexed, unable to fathom how a seemingly regular human could harm him. Miggy urges Shinichi to finish off A, but Shinichi refuses. He's adamant that he won't become a murderer. This disagreement gives A window to escape. A decides he needs to relocate, as the current body he occupies is no longer useful. He plans to join with Tamiya to share her body. Yet, upon reaching Tamiya's location, he discovers she has set a trap. As a result, A meets his end in a gas explosion. Several months pass, and the school reopens. Tamiya attends a lecture, but the teachers have learned of her pregnancy. Considering her unmarried status and the uncertainty of the father's identity, they contemplate firing her. To evade attention, Tamiya abandons her human identity. Before leaving, she has a final meeting with Shinichi. During this conversation, she imparts a thought: all living beings are born with predetermined rules. When she assimilated the human brain, she received an order to consume all humans. Shinichi questions Tamiya about her plans for the baby. She responds that she intends to experiment on it, and if it doesn't serve her purpose, she'll kill it. This infuriates Shinichi, and Tamiya, sensing his anger, readies herself to kill him. However, she notices that Shinichi is gradually losing his innocence. This realization halts her, and she decides to spare his life. Later, during the night, Tamiya's mother pays her a visit. Instantly, she realizes that the person before her is not her daughter. Attempting to alert the police, Tamiya transforms and murders her own mother. The fact that her mother could see through her disguise surprises Tamiya. Subsequently, Shinichi discovers that Miggy can now detach from his arm for 3 minutes and can also transform into more intricate tools, even a gun. Meanwhile, Shinichi's parents plan a vacation in Sakurazaki, leaving him alone at home. During their conversation, his father reflects that Shinichi has never gone through a rebellious phase. He speculates that this might be due to an incident when Shinichi was little. His mother saved him from hot oil, which left her hands scarred. After their discussion, Shainishi's parents bid him farewell, asking him to take care of himself in their absence. The following day, Shainishi heads to school and quickly notices a troubling scene. Nagai is being attacked by a group of guys. Concerned, he steps in and urges them to stop. One of the attackers approaches Shainishi and tries to deter him. But Shainishi isn't discouraged, he insists they back off. Hearing this, their leader, Mitsuo, decides to target Shainishi instead. The beating continues until Kana, a girl, intervenes and persuades Mitsuo to halt. Curious, Kana questions Shainishi's choice to intervene despite his apparent vulnerability. However, upon looking into his eyes, she senses something unusual and becomes apprehensive. She inquires about his identity, but Shainishi remains tight-lipped. At school later on, Murano and Takekawa are curious about Shainishi's condition. He downplays the incident, claiming it's nothing significant. Shainishi's friend Kamijo shows up and praises him for standing up to Mitsuo. Kamijo offers his support if Shainishi ever faces trouble with Mitsuo again. After school, Shainishi and Murano depart together, only to find Kana waiting for Shainishi. She's puzzled by his decision not to run away earlier, finding it odd. Murano assures Kana that Shainishi's actions aren't out of the ordinary. Following their brief exchange, the pair resumes their journey. Unbeknownst to them, Mitsuo has been lurking nearby, and he sends his gang to confront Shainishi and abduct Murano. Guided by them, Shainishi reaches a desolate location, where Mitsuo lies in wait. The confrontation turns physical, and Mitsuo begins assaulting Shainishi. Despite the blows, Shainishi insists that Migi refrains from interfering. Migi, however, makes it clear that if their enemy crosses a line, he won't hesitate to intervene. Even lethally, Shainishi starts to lose the fight and, caught up in his emotions, triggers Migi's transformation into a weapon. At a crucial moment, Kamijo and Nagai arrive with their friends, intervening to rescue Shainishi and Murano. After the brawl, Murano takes Shainishi to his house to tend to his injuries. She expresses regret for what unfolded. Shainishi opens up to her, wondering if she finds him strange. She reassures him, sharing that she thinks he's amazing for going to such lengths for others. Shainishi then offers her a place to stay, but she declines. As they part ways, Kana appears. She comes to apologize for the turmoil and extends her hand in friendship. Shainishi reciprocates, but Kana suddenly experiences a strange sensation. Sensing her unease, Shainishi swiftly bids her farewell. Migi cautions Shainishi to be cautious around Kana, as she has a subtle ability to sense the same signals that the parasites feel. He adds that Murano possesses a similar, albeit weaker, sensitivity to these signals. In a different scene, Shainishi's parents are shown enjoying their vacation. However, a parasite emerges and tragically beheads his mother. Shortly after, Shainishi receives a call from a pay phone. On the line is his injured father, who struggles to utter the word monster along with Shainishi's mother's name. The call abruptly ends, leaving Shainishi devastated. The following day, Shainishi awakens with concern, still waiting for his father's return call. Migi interjects, alerting him that a new parasite is approaching. Ready to defend himself, Shainishi grabs a knife from the kitchen. Migi informs him that the parasite is at the doorstep. As the door opens, the true identity of the intruder is revealed, Shainishi's mother. She has come in search of his father, who miraculously survived the attack. In that moment, Shainishi starts conversing with his mother as if she were truly there. Migi attempts to reason with him, but before he can succeed, Shainishi's mother undergoes a transformation and fatally pierces his heart. After her transformation, Shainishi's mother retreats. Seeing the dire situation, Migi makes a crucial decision. He merges with Shainishi's heart, initiating a life-saving procedure. Migi gathers various supplements like sugar and water, distributing them within Shainishi's body. Following the procedure, Shainishi awakens to the sound of a ringing phone. As he reaches for his glasses, he realizes they cause blurry vision. He removes them and heads to the bathroom, where he discovers Migi has sealed his chest wound. The reality of the experience sinks in, and his spirits drop. Later, the phone rings again. Shainishi answers and learns it's the hospital calling. The nurse reassures him that his father is safe and requests clothing for him. Shainishi agrees to bring the clothes, but his plans are interrupted by Murano's arrival. She expresses concern for his absence from school. Shainishi explains his father's accident and the need to skip a few days of school. With revenge on his mind, Shainishi heads to Sakurazaki. Later, aboard a boat, Shainishi becomes lost in his thoughts until a young woman named Maki approaches him. Concerned, she inquires about his well-being. Ignoring her question, Shainishi asks if she's from Sakurazaki. Confirming this, he then queries if she knows the way to the hospital. Once again, she affirms, prompting Shinichi to ask for her assistance in guiding him there. Meanwhile, the police visit Shinichi's father and share the news that his wife is alive. They attribute his earlier sight as a result of post-traumatic stress. After their departure, Shinichi arrives and attempts to reveal his mother's death. However, a sharp pain in his chest halts him. He realizes he can't shed tears. His father discloses that Shinichi's mother is missing, shocking him. His father attributes the previous incident to a potential nightmare. Despite this, Shinichi insists that his mother was killed by a monster. His father apologizes for discussing this over the phone and attempts to dismiss it as mistaken perceptions. When Shinichi starts explaining about the parasites, his father interrupts and asks him to halt. Following the conversation, Shinichi opts to stay at a nearby inn to be close to his father. He discovers that Maki, the woman from the boat, is the innkeeper's daughter. During the night, Migi informs Shinichi about a new vulnerability due to Miga's repair work. He will now need to sleep for 4 hours each day. Shinichi notes that he's slept before, but Migi clarifies that it's different now. He will remain asleep for the full 4 hours, without waking even if danger is nearby. The following day, Shinichi visits his father at the hospital. He brings along magazines and a newspaper and spends time outside, keeping watch while Migi sleeps. During this time, Maki arrives and strikes up a conversation. She asks about whether he has a girlfriend, but Shinichi remains silent. Migi alerts him to a nearby parasite, prompting Shinichi to ask Maki for directions to the beach. She directs him down a straight path. Following a direct path, he sprints at high speed. When he encounters a tall wall, he easily leaps over it, continuing his pursuit of the parasite. However, to his surprise, the figure before him isn't his mother, but an entirely different person. This man introduces himself as Yuta, and as their conversation unfolds, a startling revelation emerges. Yuta's story mirrors Shinichi's. He, too, shares a symbiotic connection with a parasite named Jaw. Unlike Miga's successful integration, Jaw's attempt to infiltrate Yuta's brain went awry. A fall from a cliff into the sea disrupted the process. In a remarkable twist of fate, Jaw settled near Yuta's neck, a life-saving maneuver that spared them both from drowning. After this eye-opening encounter, Shinichi and Yuta make their way to the hospital rooftop. Amid the serene backdrop, Shinichi shares the intricate threads of his own experiences, weaving a bond between them that transcends their shared struggles. Tears stream down Yuta's face as he relays his story. Jaw, his ever-watchful parasite, expresses puzzlement at this uniquely human response. Yuta's empathy for Shinichi deepens, prompting an offer of assistance. The resonance of their shared experiences fills Shinichi with a sense of connection he hadn't anticipated, a glimmer of understanding and camaraderie. As evening falls, Miga's altered composition grants Shinichi astonishing physical abilities, allowing him to perform athletic feats with remarkable ease. Yet, Shinichi ponders the possibility that fragments of Miga's essence have reached his brain, potentially accounting for his inability to shed tears since Miga's healing intervention. The following day, seeking solace outdoors, Shinichi encounters Maki once again. He seeks her perspective on his humanity, and her perceptive response reveals a glimpse of his inner turmoil. As Maki departs, a call from Yuta shatters the moment. Urgency grips the situation as Yuta pinpoints the elusive parasite's location. With concern for Yuta's safety, Shinichi instructs him to flee to safety. Yuta discloses his destination, a nearby mountain pass, prompting Shinichi to embark on the same route. Yet, as they journey, Miga's fatigue takes hold, prompting an unexpected transformation into a blade. As Yuta finds himself trapped at the edge of a cliff, Shinichi's mother, under the control of a parasite, emerges. The threat is real as she targets Yuta's intact brain to eliminate him. Jaw, the parasite within Yuta, springs into action, battling against Shinichi's mother. However, Yuta's weakness becomes evident. He's not as strong as Shinichi, and he struggles to fend off the assault. Amidst the struggle, Jaw makes a crucial observation. Shinichi's mother is fixated on one specific target. Despite Jaw's efforts to deflect the attacks, Yuta gets wounded and falls off the cliff, bloodied and near death. Suddenly, Shinichi arrives on the scene, transformed into a formidable blade. The sight surprises the parasite controlling his mother's body, who believed Shinichi was gone. Undeterred, she sets her sights on Shinichi, launching a fierce attack. But Shinichi's newfound reflexes and agility come to his aid, allowing him to expertly evade her strikes. In the midst of the fight, Shinichi recognizes his enhanced reflexes and seizes the opportunity to weaken his opponent. He methodically slices off her tentacles. However, as he's about to land the final blow, he notices a scar on his mother's body, a poignant reminder of her humanity. Hesitation creeps in, and the parasite seizes the chance to counterattack, attempting to turn the tide. Just when things seem dire, an unexpected twist occurs. A surprise attack from behind hurls the parasite-controlled body into the sea. The tide turns in favor of Yuta and Jaw. Jaw's quick thinking saves Yuta by relocating his vital organs, preventing a fatal strike. Even though the enemy was controlling Shinishi's mother's body, Yuta believes that Shinishi shouldn't have been the one to end her life. Following the intense battle, Shinishi bids farewell to Maki and reunites with his father. In a heart-to-heart moment, he assures his dad that their mom's love for him endures, even in her current state. Curious about his mom's suffering, Shinishi learns from his dad that the end came swiftly, sparing her from pain. Exhausted from his ordeal, Shinishi finds solace in sleep. Meanwhile, in another scene, Kana and Murano sense Shinishi's presence nearby. Murano calls out his name, prompting Shinishi to turn around and reveal his transformed appearance. In a hidden spot, Tamiya's appearance has transformed, and her belly has grown. She assigns a new partner to monitor Shinishi, recognizing both his threat and his potential value. Meanwhile, Kana is seen walking with Shinishi's picture on her phone when she's approached by Mitsuo. His growing jealousy prompts him to question Kana's feelings for Shinishi. Despite his inquiry, Kana firmly asserts that it's none of his business and walks away. Later, Mitsuo waits for Shinishi outside the school and leads him to the location of their previous confrontation. There, Mitsuo inquires about Shinishi's relationship with Kana, receiving a denial in response. Despite Shinishi's attempt to disengage, Mitsuo attacks. However, Shinishi easily evades and warns him against continuing the conflict. Mitsuo persists, leading to a skirmish where Shinishi skillfully evades Mitsuo's strikes. Shinishi eventually manages to knock Mitsuo down. Shortly after the confrontation, Murano arrives in search of Shinishi, concerned about his well-being. He reassures her that everything's okay, and the two of them begin walking together. During their conversation, Murano playfully questions if he's truly Shinishi Izumi, to which he responds in a teasing manner, asking if she's genuinely Murano Satomi, eliciting a smile from her. Arriving home, Shinishi notices that his father is drinking alcohol and advises him to eat instead. However, his father brushes off the suggestion. The following day, at school, Shinishi and Murano learn about his heightened senses, which alert him to a nearby accident. Investigating, he discovers a suffering dog on the brink of death. He carries the dog to a park to spend its final moments there with Murano. While they are together, Murano observes Shinishi's noticeable change. However, their interaction takes a somber turn as the dog passes away. Shinishi discards the dog's body, explaining that it's now just lifeless flesh. This reaction surprises Murano, and her tears reveal her emotional turmoil. She expresses that the Shinishi she knew seems different, leading her to flee. Perplexed, Shinishi turns to Migi for insight. Migi suggests that his actions resembled those of a parasite more than a human. Reflecting on this, Shinishi decides to honor the dog by burying it in the park. At school, Migi alerts Shinishi about a new parasite. Surprisingly, the parasite named Shimada approaches Shinishi, introducing himself and expressing his desire to be friends. As they both attend physical education classes, Shinishi attempts to blend in during track and field races, but Shimada effortlessly takes the lead, drawing astonishment from everyone except Shinishi, who remains unsurprised. After the races, Shinishi and Shimada have a private conversation. Shimada reveals that Tamiya has changed her name and explains his long-standing avoidance of harming humans. He's searching for a way for humans and parasites to coexist. However, Migi abruptly interrupts, urging Shinishi to stop the conversation and leave. Later, when they're alone, Shinishi questions Migi's behavior. Migi confesses that it's his bedtime and he couldn't risk revealing his vulnerability to Shimada. Kana senses Shinishi's presence and moves towards him. But as she approaches, she accidentally collides with Shimada, mistaking him for Shinishi. Intrigued by this, Shimada grabs her arm to inquire further. Just then, Shinishi arrives and issues a threat, warning Shimada to stay away from his friends. Shimada assures him he's not looking for a fight and departs, noting Migi's weakened state. Following the incident, Kana invites Shinishi to join her, and he agrees. However, as they're about to leave, they encounter Murano. She passes by without acknowledging them. Later that night, Shimada changes his appearance to that of another person and pretends to assist a lost girl. He leads her to an isolated area and proceeds to attack and consume her. The following day, Shimada crosses paths with Kana. Panicking, Kana tries to flee but accidentally collides with Mitsuo. This draws Mitsuo's attention to Kana's distress, prompting him to confront Shimada and lead him to a restroom. Inside, Shimada swiftly incapacitates Mitsuo with a single punch, cautioning him to avoid further trouble or face dire consequences. Exiting the restroom, Shimada comes into Takakawa's view, and it's evident she has a fondness for him. Later, in the classroom, Akiho informs Takakawa that she observed her sketching Shimada in her notebook. Takakawa blushes in response, and Akiho playfully remarks on Shimada's handsomeness, likening it to having a fake face. Takakawa contemplates Akiho's words. On a different note, Shainishi's father engages in a conversation with the police officers. They emphasize the importance of maintaining secrecy regarding the existence of the monsters, fearing that revealing such information could trigger widespread panic. A police officer presents a sketch to Shainishi's father, seeking his confirmation if it accurately represents the appearance of the creature. The father affirms the accuracy of the drawing. In another scene, we discover that the police officer responsible for crafting the parasite's portrait is Takakawa's older brother. Takakawa secretly glimpses the drawing while her brother is asleep. However, he wakes up promptly, taking the notebook away and downplaying the significance of the illustration. Takakawa shows her brother the portrait she created of Shimada, inquiring whether he notices anything unusual about Shimada's visage. Her brother, though, perceives nothing unusual and finds Shimada's appearance perfectly normal. The following day, Takakawa spots Shimada once more. She witnesses a baseball hurtling towards the field, striking Shimada's head and creating a hole in his skull. Astonishingly, when baseball club members inquire about his well-being, Shimada nonchalantly reassures them and promptly heals the wound before departing, leaving Takakawa in a state of terror. In another instance, Shainishi encounters Murano and endeavors to clarify that he has no connection with Kana. Nevertheless, his exchange with Murano is interrupted by Migi, who informs him of Shimada's precarious situation, ambushed by Mitsuo's group outside the school. Fearing potential bloodshed, Shainishi rushes to the scene without his backpack. Arriving just in time, Shainishi admonishes Shimada for his actions, accusing him of revealing his true nature. Yet, Shimada counters that he's the victim before departing calmly. Shainishi instructs Mitsuo's group to leave Shimada be and returns to the school, where Murano waits with his backpack. However, Shimada reappears moments later, questioning Shainishi about his involvement in thwarting the bullies. Denying any involvement with his right hand, Shainishi tersely dismisses Shimada. Murano queries Shainishi about his disagreement with Shimada, to which Shainishi labels him as deranged. This revelation leaves Murano disillusioned, prompting her to express her disappointment and walk away. Later, while in the bathroom, Shainishi contemplates his recent behavior, reflecting on his actions. Migi, his parasite companion, offers words of encouragement, noting that Shainishi has evolved as a species and that, if necessary, Migi will support him to regain his spirits. In a separate scene, Takakawa resumes her surveillance of Shimada. She witnesses him altering his appearance, confirming her earlier observations. Reminded of her brother's sketch, she resolves to inquire further about the creature. Back home, Takakawa's brother reveals the current knowledge about the parasites, emphasizing their danger and their tendency to consume humans. Armed with this information, Takakawa decides to confront Shimada in the art room. She bravely tells him she knows everything and asks him to stop hurting people. Shimada feels threatened and decides to kill her. Meanwhile, Migi informs Shainishi that Shimada is acting aggressively again. Deciding to take action, Shainishi leaves his classroom to search for Shimada. Meanwhile, Takakawa faces Shimada's attack, skillfully dodging it. She cleverly throws paint thinner on him, causing serious injuries. Using the distraction, she escapes through a window, landing safely. Two students and a teacher discover Shimada's violence in the hallway, meeting a grim fate. The teachers quickly evacuate the school as Shimada's rampage continues. Shainishi realizes that Murano's class is missing, so he heads to the third floor to find her. Amid the chaos and lifeless bodies, he regains his focus with Migi's help. Shainishi encounters Murano and classmates, but their fear leads them to flee and fall victim to Shimada. Determined to protect Murano, Shainishi guides her out of danger and ensures her safety. The police arrive at the school to confront Shimada, but he takes them down one by one. Shainishi takes matters into his own hands and faces Shimada on a nearby rooftop. With combined strength, he throws a stone at Shimada, piercing his heart and ending the threat. In the aftermath, the Japanese government debates whether to reveal information about the parasites. They discuss a method to identify them, pulling out a hair, as parasites' hairs are part of their cells, and when removed, they begin to move. Eventually, the government introduced a new way of greeting using this method to ensure people's safety. A few days pass, and Kana watches the news on her cell phone. She spots Shinichi from a distance and approaches him, attempting to pluck out a strand of his hair as a test. Shinichi notices her attempt but allows her to take a lock of his hair, which she keeps in a handkerchief. They exchange a brief conversation, and Shinichi reminds her not to come near when she senses his presence. In the next scene, a parasite named Garu infiltrates a Yakuza hideout, swiftly eliminating them one by one. The mobsters are shocked by his incredible speed and strength. After the massacre, the only survivor questions his motives, and Garu explains he was merely testing his abilities. Garu then changes his appearance and leaves the scene, joining his partner in a car before meeting with their boss, Hirakawa. On a different note, Shinichi's relationship with Murano grows as they go on movie dates and spend time at the park. Their day ends with a kiss at her doorstep. Meanwhile, Kana, who is still searching for Shinichi, unexpectedly witnesses their kiss before leaving. However, she still has a final favor to ask of Shinichi. The following day, Shinichi meets Kana at a prearranged location. Migi senses a gathering of many parasites in the vicinity, prompting Shinichi to investigate. He discovers that Hirakawa, a parasite introduced earlier, is running for mayor with several other parasites as his followers. Garu, the powerful parasite, notices Shinichi but dismisses him as a threat. Kana arrives at the location, explaining that she chose it because it's near her home. They engage in a conversation where Kana reveals her ability to sense people beyond Shinichi, causing him to feel concerned. After their talk, Shinichi heads back home. Inside, Migi warns him not to reveal any more information to Kana as her safety could be compromised. However, Shinichi chooses to assist her despite the risk. Meanwhile, Kana starts having dreams featuring Shinichi as her protector against monstrous foes, indicating her growing feelings for him. Days later, Shinichi arranges a meeting with Kana in an abandoned building. Ensuring that Migi is asleep, he shares all he knows about the parasites with her. Kana responds with slight disappointment, expecting more exciting revelations. She then confides in Shinichi that she can distinguish him from other parasites, offering him reassurance. After a little while, Shinichi takes a stroll with Murano, while Kana secretly observes them. However, Migi awakens and notices Kana's actions. Late at night, Migi informs Shinichi that Kana's ability has intensified, allowing her to emit similar waves to a parasite. Albeit weaker, this revelation worries Shinichi. He admits that he had shared information about the parasites with Kana, and Migi casually acknowledges that he already had a hunch. Curious, Shinichi asks Migi if he can reveal himself to Kana. After discussing the potential risks and benefits, Migi agrees. The following day, they set out to find Kana, but Migi soon senses the presence of another parasite nearby. Meanwhile, Kana prepares to meet Shinichi, twirling his hair around her finger. Later, on the street, she senses Shinichi's presence using her abilities. She heads to the abandoned building from the previous day, but upon arrival, she is horrified to discover a parasite devouring a body. She flees in terror, but as she nears the exit, she spots Shinichi. Suddenly, a parasite strikes her with a blade, leaving her injured. Shinichi's anger ignites, and he commands Migi to take charge of the defense while he charges straight at the parasite. With a powerful motion, he tears the parasite's heart out with a single arm and hurls it against a wall. Then, he cradles Kana in his arms. She speaks to him about a dream she had, but tragically, she succumbs to her injuries, the hair she once twirled slipping from her finger as she mentions her dream. Several days pass, and Shinichi finds himself at Kana's funeral, a somber event that weighs heavily on his heart. After the ceremony, he departs the location, but his path is unexpectedly blocked by Mitsuo. In his anguish, Mitsuo unleashes a barrage of punches upon Shinichi, demanding to know why he didn't protect Kana. He questions why Shinichi isn't shedding a single tear and doubts if he's truly human. Fueled by his anger, Shinichi retaliates by landing a forceful punch on Mitsuo's nose. He fiercely asserts that he isn't entirely human anymore and confronts the reality of how easily lives are extinguished. Filled with a mix of emotions, Shinichi retreats to a forest, grappling with his inner turmoil. He questions his own calm demeanor and contemplates whether Migi has taken control of his mind. In his distress, he resorts to striking his head against a tree, but Migi implores him to cease the self-inflicted harm. In a moment of introspection, Shinichi acknowledges that at least his blood remains red for the time being. A couple of days later, Hirakawa's group convenes to discuss recent events, including the parasite that Shinichi eliminated. They are in the process of establishing safe zones where parasites can feed without posing a threat. Among them is Tamiya, now known as Tamura, who participates as part of the mayor's group. She brings up the topic of Shinichi, urging her fellow parasites not to harm him for the time being. Later that evening, Tamura returns to her residence, where her nanny awaits her along with her crying son. In a surprising display of control, Tamura leans in and whispers for the child to quiet down, immediately soothing him. The nanny, taken aback and fearful, flees in terror. Subsequently, Tamura reaches out to a private detective named Kiramori. She enlists his services to investigate Shinichi up close. They hatch a plan to test Shinichi's capabilities by sending a group of individuals to attack him. Shinichi effortlessly repels their assaults, all the while being closely observed and documented by the detective. Following the test, the detective meets with Tamura and reports that the boy, Shinichi, possesses impressive fighting skills. Tamura, however, disregards the detective's response and focuses on a specific inquiry. She asks if he noticed anything unusual about Shinichi's right hand, to which the detective responds in the negative. Tamura's suspicion is aroused by this response, making her think that the boy has undergone significant changes. Later that night, Shinichi visits the location where Kana tragically passed away. Unbeknownst to him, he is being pursued by Kiramori. As Shinichi explains to Migi his reason for revisiting this place, not wanting to forget the sadness of losing a friend, Kiramori, with camera in hand, starts recording the scene. He notices an anomaly in Shinichi's right hand, but before he can investigate further, Migi senses the presence of an intruder. In an attempt to attack Kiramori, Migi detaches from Shinichi's arm, injuring the detective's leg and arm. However, the distance from Shinichi weakens Miga's attack, and the detective manages to escape, leaving his camera behind. Miga's sudden drowsiness causes him to fall asleep, giving Kiramori the chance to flee without being seriously harmed. Upon returning home, Shinichi and Migi become aware that the detective had been tailing them for an extended period. Fearing that the detective might exploit him for experimentation, Shinichi becomes extremely anxious. The following day, this unease leads him to attend school in a state of paranoia, convinced he's being trailed. Overwhelmed by these feelings, he starts to see his classmates treating him like a monster, prompting him to abruptly leave school and return home. From the safety of his balcony, Shinichi spots the detective still observing him. However, the moment he's noticed, the detective hastily flees the scene. As evening descends, Shinichi rendezvous with Murano in a park, sparking yet another argument about his transformation. Although he contemplates sharing the whole truth with her, in the end, he refrains from doing so, leaving Murano disappointed as she departs. On a different note, Tamura has another encounter with the detective. She firmly insists that he should stop working for her, but the detective stands his ground, deeply invested in the situation. Tamura then leaves the scene, and as she goes, the detective struggles to articulate his thoughts, which amuses her. Later, at home, she bursts into laughter again, realizing she's starting to experience human emotions. The detective returns to his house and finds his daughter sleeping peacefully. He decides to pour himself a drink to unwind. When his wife arrives home from work, she expresses concern about his involvement in dangerous matters. Meanwhile, Shinichi heads back to his house, where Migi suggests a plan to work alongside the detective. To achieve this, they'll require assistance, so they contact Yuta and Jaw for help. Meeting on the rooftop of a building, they discuss the plan with their partners. Migi displays the detective's image for Jaw to memorize. The next day, Yuta helps Shinichi track down the detective's whereabouts. Shinichi intentionally allows the detective to follow him to a street corner, revealing that he was expecting him. Taking hold of the detective's arm, Shinichi guides him into a car driven by Yuta. They drive to a remote area, where Shinichi proceeds to share his entire journey since encountering Migi. The detective then proposes a controversial idea. Shinichi should become an experiment to aid humanity, and potentially sacrifice himself. Migi and Jaw react strongly against this proposal. Migi goes on to explain that Shinichi has faced numerous challenges, leading Shinichi to realize Miga's growing empathy towards him. Following their discussion, Migi reveals that the individual who hired the detective is also a parasite, leaving the detective in shock. After this conversation, Shinichi receives a nighttime call from Tamura. She arranges a meeting on a university rooftop. The next day, they both head to the rooftop. After Tamura attends a genetics lecture, accompanied by her son, Tamura explains to Shinichi that parasites are seeking a way to coexist peacefully with humans. However, Shinichi's anger resurfaces, stemming from the parasite's role in his mother's death. Tamura's laughter provokes Shinichi's anger further, leading him to threaten her. Their conversation is cut short by the arrival of students on the rooftop, prompting Tamura to leave the scene. Some days later, Kuromori arranges for an investigator to tail Tamura. The investigator notices that Tamura is with a man before they separate. Following the man, the investigator observes him dating another girl, and eventually arriving at a parking lot. However, when the investigator tries to get closer, he makes a grim discovery. The girl is dead, and the man is revealed to be a parasite. Troubled by this, the detective decides to seek Shinishi's help. Together, they go to the parking lot where the investigator and the girl met their unfortunate end. While there, Shinichi senses the smell of blood, but Migi intervenes, alerting them to the presence of a parasite. They hide with the detective, awaiting the parasite's arrival. Soon enough, the parasite appears with a girl, seemingly intending to harm her. Despite Migi's cautioning, Shinichi steps forward and demands that the parasite stop. The girl quickly realizes that the person she's with is a monster and tries to escape. The parasite brandishes a blade and fatally injures her. Fueled by a mix of anger and determination, Shinichi confronts the parasite in combat alongside Migi. Meanwhile, the detective records the intense battle, astonished by the incredible speed and skill of both combatants. As the fight unfolds, Migi gains the upper hand, inflicting severe injuries on the parasite. Eventually, Migi delivers a final, fatal blow that ends the parasite's life. After the intense battle, the detective admits to Shinichi that he feels ill-equipped to continue investigating the parasites. He hands over the memory card from his camera to Migi for destruction and bids Shinichi farewell, choosing to step back from the situation. Meanwhile, Hirakawa's group discusses the recent events involving the detective and Shinichi. The parking lot incident disrupted their feeding area, resulting in the death of one of their own. Recognizing that saving Shinichi is unlikely, Tamura asks that at least his body remains intact for her examination. Hirakawa assigns Garu the task of dealing with Shinichi, and Garu informs them that Miki will be the one to kill him. The next day, Shinichi heads to school but is alerted by Migi that 3 parasites are on their way. He leaves the school premises to prevent putting anyone else in danger. In a residential area, Migi informs Shinichi that he needs a 4-hour rest as he feels sleepy. To buy time, Shinichi takes a taxi to a secluded area. There, he encounters Miki, a parasite who notices the weakened signal from Shinichi's right hand, contrary to what he was told about Shinichi's strength. Realizing this, Shinichi flees. Although Miki initially appears slow, he manages to keep up. Shinichi gains a brief advantage and reaches a road. However, Miki reappears behind a van, showing that he is part of a larger group. With Migi's 4-hour rest period over, Migi awakens and assesses the situation, revealing that the other 2 parasites pursuing them are part of Miki's body. This makes Miki significantly more powerful, armed with multiple blades compared to a standard parasite. As the battle rages on, Migi finds himself at a disadvantage against Miki due to the larger parasite's increased strength and multiple blades. Miki manages to wound Shinichi with his blades during the skirmish. Realizing that Miki's head is his control center, Migi devises a plan and instructs Shinichi to lead Miki into the forest. There, Shinichi employs the trees as barriers against Miki's attacks. He cleverly maneuvers around Miki, evading his strikes and launches a counterattack, eventually beheading Miki. However, Migi detects that Miki contained not 3, but 5 parasites within his body. The mastermind behind this group is revealed to be Garu. Garu swiftly engages Shinichi with extraordinary speed and strength. In response, Shinichi retreats to the road, and with Migi's assistance, they manage to hop onto a passing truck. Nevertheless, Garu alters his leg's shape, enabling him to catch up using his remarkable speed. Just as Garu is about to deliver a fatal blow, Migi intervenes, causing Garu to collide with an oncoming truck, saving Shinichi and Migi. Meanwhile, Detective Kuromori arrives home and discovers the tragic deaths of his wife and daughter. Seeking help, he contacts the police, and Detective Harama informs him that they are aware of the parasite situation and encourages him to share his knowledge. Kuromori, needing time to process, requests a quiet place. He leaves a note with the name Tamura and disappears. In the midst of these events, we observe Shinichi as he changes his attire and embarks on a quest to find a place to have a meal. Subsequently, he contacts his father, urgently advising him to vacate their residence due to the imminent arrival of the creature that claimed his mother's life. In a different sequence, we shift our focus to Tamura strolling along the street. Unexpectedly, she is confronted by members of Hirakawa's group who harbor suspicions regarding her intentions. As a result, she hatches a clever plan to lead the 3 enemy parasites into an old, abandoned building. Once inside, she employs a risky tactic by dividing herself into two parts. One part enters the body of one enemy, seizing control of its lower half and causing its demise from within. Then, she inhabits the body of the woman among the trio of parasites, who ends up being slain by the sole surviving enemy. Swiftly, Tamura surprises the last enemy, dismantling him and ending the threat. Afterward, she returns home, only to find that Kiramori has kidnapped her son. He leaves a note instructing her to meet him at Hikari Park. Concerned about her son's safety, Tamura contacts Shinichi and asks him to meet her at the same park, as she has something important to share. Subsequently, Tamura confronts Kiramori at the park. He taunts her, claiming that she can never truly understand humanity or the depths of parenthood. In a shocking turn of events, Kiramori attempts to hurl the baby from the observation deck. Reacting swiftly, Tamura impales him with a blade, saving her child but causing Kiramori to plummet to his doom. Moments later, Detective Harama arrives with his team. They discover Kiramori in his dying moments, who provides them with crucial information. He describes Tamura, dressed in white, clutching her baby, both stained with Kiramori's blood. With his last breath, he expresses relief that he didn't harm the innocent child before succumbing. Meanwhile, Shinichi crosses paths with Tamura, who imparts a revelation: parasites can subsist without preying on humans. She also cautions him about the formidable threat of Garu, advising him against confronting the dangerous parasite. However, their conversation is abruptly halted by the unexpected arrival of Detective Harama. Observing that Tamura matches the description provided by Kiramori, the detective opens fire on her. Rather than fleeing, Tamura employs her own hair as a shield for her son. Despite the barrage of police gunfire, she persists in approaching Shinichi. Initially hesitant about her proximity, Shinichi's resolve wavers when Tamura uses her ability to morph her face into that of his late mother. This gesture reveals her heartfelt intentions, prompting Harama to command his officers to cease fire. Tamura entrusts her baby to Shinichi's care, pleading with him to raise the child as a normal human. With a firm promise to safeguard the infant, Shinichi gains a newfound sense of responsibility. In a surprising twist, Tamura expresses gratitude and recounts her recent experience of laughter, acknowledging the human emotions she's encountered. Moments later, she makes a conscious decision to remain in the face of potential escape, leading to her demise. This selfless act perplexes Migi, as Tamura could have saved herself but chose not to. Amidst the poignant scene, the baby's cries fill the air. Taking in the moment, Shinichi reflects on his past and a dream in which his mother returned from her vacation. Overwhelmed by emotion, he finally lets his tears flow, marking a significant emotional breakthrough. In the aftermath of Tamura's passing, Detective Harama takes Shinichi to a facility, driven by his belief that Shinichi possesses an ability to detect parasites. To put this theory to the test, an experiment is conducted using an assassin named Uragami, who can identify parasites with a mere glance. Both Shinichi and Uragami are positioned face to face in the experiment, during which Uragami senses something unusual within Shinichi. However, chalking it up to his imagination, Uragami dismisses the notion. Following this trial, Shinichi and his father are cleared of suspicion and excluded from further investigation. Meanwhile, the government takes action to eliminate the parasite threat. An examination of Tamura's body and those of 3 other parasites leads the police to trace them back to Hirakawa. This prompts them to strategize an attack on Hirakawa's gathering, suspecting him to be the mastermind behind the parasites. Detective Harama joins forces with Yamagishi, who heads the operation. To enhance their efforts, Harama suggests enlisting Uragami's skills in identifying parasites. After a strategic meeting, the detective visits Shinichi at his school, urging him to partake in the operation due to his profound understanding of parasites. Several days later, the operation commences. Law enforcement officers encircle the building housing Hirakawa and Garu. Inside, they corral everyone at the entrance, then systematically evacuate civilians in groups of 7 for sensor checks. Once a parasite is detected among the people, swift action is taken to eliminate it. To ensure thorough precautions, Uragami is dispatched for the task. As he commences his duty, he senses a parasite in the adjacent line. Unfortunately, a police officer misidentifies a human as a parasite and tragically takes their life. This confusion provides an opening for 2 actual parasites in the queue to mount a counterattack. Amidst the ensuing turmoil, the sensor system sustains damage. Meanwhile, within the building, several more parasites begin to reveal themselves. This diversion aids Hirakawa in making his escape to another location. Yamagishi takes it upon himself to enter the building, issuing orders to eliminate anyone who doesn't follow his commands, regardless of their true identity. Alongside Uragami, he embarks on the search for parasites, determined to root them out. Another team remains stationed at the entrance, poised to eliminate any parasites that emerge. After a period of time, Yamagishi separates from Uragami's group, growing proficient in identifying parasites independently. He shoots without hesitation at anyone he encounters, tipping the balance in favor of humans over parasites. Later, Uragami's group crosses paths with Garu. Fearing for his life, Uragami flees the scene upon seeing him. Meanwhile, Garu leads a group of police officers to a large hall. The officers launch a barrage of gunfire at him, but the resourceful parasite turns the bullets to his advantage, systematically incapacitating the agents. Concurrently, another squad closes in on the location where Hirakawa is hidden. At that very moment, the mayor steps forward and shares his chilling belief that humans excel in the art of killing, and therefore their abilities should be harnessed for the Earth's greater good. His idea is to reduce the human population, which he claims would also lessen pollution. He argues that parasites naturally fit into the hierarchy of nature, acting as a safeguard against the destructive tendencies of humans. He boldly declares humans as the true plague upon the planet. However, the mayor's words are abruptly halted by the officers, who open fire to disrupt his speech. Amid the chaos, an officer examines the fallen figure of Hirakawa and makes a shocking discovery. Hirakawa was human all along. In a swift turn of events, Garu storms into the room. Gazing at Hirakawa's lifeless body, he reflects on the mayor's enigmatic nature until the very end. Then, without hesitation, Garu unleashes a violent spree, mercilessly slaughtering the police officers before him, revealing a terrifying and insatiable thirst for blood. Meanwhile, Uragami and a detective arrive in the expansive hall that had previously housed Garu. The detective is left in awe at the havoc wrought by a lone parasite. Before the detective can react, Uragami seizes the moment, wielding a weapon found on the floor. He shoots the detective and swiftly escapes the scene. In a fresh scene, Garu's devastating power is on full display as he effortlessly dispatches multiple police officers. His path crosses with Yamagishi's group, and he swiftly eliminates 2 members. Determined to confront the menace head-on, Yamagishi and his remaining soldiers make their way to the rooftop of the building. However, their arrival reveals a grim reality: their comrades lie dead. Garu emerges, admitting his own careless injuries sustained during the battle. He informs Yamagishi that he stands as the sole survivor, setting the stage for a fateful confrontation. Unleashing a hail of bullets, Yamagishi attempts to take down Garu. Yet, Garu's agility and skill become evident as he effortlessly dodges the onslaught of bullets, showcasing his superior prowess. The tables quickly turn as Garu launches a counteroffensive, making it abundantly clear that Yamagishi is woefully outmatched. Meanwhile, on the building's outskirts, Shinichi and Harama disembark from a vehicle, intrigued by reports of something unusual falling from the sky. As they investigate, they discover the severed head of Yamagishi. Suddenly, Garu emerges before Shinichi, issuing a chilling declaration that he will eventually end Shinichi's life, not at this moment due to his exhaustion. With those words, Garu retreats. The day after the conflict at the building, Shinichi's anxiety intensifies, causing him to see Garu's face in everyone he encounters. Later, he seeks comfort from Murano, embracing her. However, his distress leads him to inadvertently hurt her. She requests him to release his grip, prompting Shinichi to flee. During the night, Shinichi heads to a park, where Murano eventually joins him. They share a tender moment together. Murano then invites Shinichi to her empty house, and they become intimate. Afterward, she reassures him that they've faced challenges before and can overcome new ones together. This bolsters Shinichi's confidence, reigniting his will to live. Several days pass, and as Shinichi is making his way back home, Migi senses danger approaching. It's Garu. Swiftly, they decide to evade their pursuer and opt to commandeer a car, utilizing Migi's newfound driving skills. Shinichi expresses the need for a secluded location, and Migi proposes the mountains as their destination, revealing a plan. As they navigate a mountainous road, Garu follows in pursuit. Unexpectedly, the car occupied by Shinichi falls onto Garu's vehicle. Eager to ascertain Garu's fate, Shinichi queries Migi, who confirms Garu's survival. A change of strategy is necessary, leading them into the shelter of a forest. Within the woods, Migi provides Shinichi with a lighter acquired from the car. He then detaches from Shinichi's arm to position himself within a tree, distracting Garu. At a predetermined moment, Migi signals to Shinichi, who hurls a spear tipped with a lit end. The spear finds its mark in Garu's leg, prompting the cells to separate instinctively. This presents Miggy with an opportunity for a decapitating attack, but his initial attempt doesn't cut deep enough. A second try is thwarted by Garu's swift reaction. In the ensuing struggle, Shinichi intervenes to support Miggy, sustaining an injury to his eyebrow from Garu's retaliation. Miggy cautions Shinichi to keep his distance and then makes a crucial decision: flee. He explains that their options are limited, leaving Shinichi no choice but to run away, regretting leaving Miggy behind. Miggy's memories with Shinichi fill his thoughts, and he feels thankful for not completely taking over Shinichi's mind. Their unique bond allowed them to become real friends. As Miggy's presence fades away, he recalls the meaningful time they had together. At night, Shinichi finds a house near a village. An elderly woman named Mitsuyo comes out and invites him in. She helps with Shinichi's wound and offers him a place to stay. They become close over the next days, and Mitsuyo treats Shinichi like family. Over time, Shinichi starts dreaming about Miggy in a different form. Miggy reveals that he knows who Shinichi is looking for. When Shinichi wakes up, he notices an eye-like structure on his right arm, realizing some of Miggy's cells are still there. Later, villagers visit Mitsuyo and talk about a creature that killed someone. They plan to bring in hunters. However, Shinichi believes hunters won't be able to defeat Garu. He decides to face Garu himself, and Mitsuyo gives him advice and a rusty machete. Shinichi gets ready to confront Garu. After Shinichi left his village, he went into a big forest. There, he found a guy named Garu who was sleeping. Shinichi thought of attacking Garu with a rusty knife, but Garu woke up and fought back. Shinichi got scared and hid in the bushes. He used his strong senses to avoid Garu. Garu looked around trying to find Shinichi. All of a sudden, Shinichi came down from above with a pointy stick, but Garu stopped him and threw him against a tree. Shinichi didn't have any weapons now. He tried to hit Garu with his fists, but Garu hit him back and sent him into a pile of trash nearby. Shinichi thought he might get killed, but then he remembered that Garu had a weak spot from a fight in the village. Shinichi grabbed a metal rod from the trash and stabbed Garu where he was hurt before. Garu felt a lot of pain. Shinichi tried to run away into the forest, but Garu caught him. Just when Garu was about to attack, Shinichi's hand, which had cells from Miggy, woke up and protected him. Another parasite came out of Garu and joined with Shinichi. It turned out to be Miggy. Miggy told Shinichi that the parasites inside Garu were fighting each other because of the metal rod. Miggy used this chance to beat Garu from the inside, but Garu didn't give up easily. Miggy didn't want to kill Garu because they were the same kind of creature. Miggy let Shinichi decide. At first, Shinichi didn't want to kill Garu because he was thinking about the value of all life. But later, he chose to end Garu's life to protect the people he cared about. The next day, a woman named Mitsuyo found out that they found the body of the monster. She realized that Shinichi could defeat it because of the old rusty machete from her house. After the fight with Garu, the parasites changed their behavior. They started eating less human flesh and doing fewer noticeable things. Shinichi had a dream where he met Miggy again. Miggy told him that he was going to sleep for a long time because being inside Garu's body was hard on him. Miggy wanted to leave Shinichi with a normal hand and forget everything they went through. But when Shinichi woke up, he told Miggy that he couldn't forget him. A year after Miggy left, Shinichi spent time with a girl named Murano at a park. She helped him with lessons from university classes because Shinichi couldn't get into university and was going to try again. They walked around the city. Shinichi thought he saw someone he knew, but he thought he was imagining it. But then he saw that it was Uragami. Shinichi tried to follow him, but Uragami tricked him and took Murano. Uragami brought them to the top of a building where there were a man and a woman. When the man saw Uragami with a knife, he tried to stop him, but Uragami hurt him and then killed the woman in front of Murano. After a bit, Shinichi came to the top of the building. He asked Uragami to let Murano go and said he would do whatever Uragami wanted. Uragami wanted to know why humans want to be in control because he thought humans are meant to kill each other. He wanted to know what Shinichi thought, since Shinichi was part human and part monster. But before they could talk more, Murano told Uragami that he didn't understand humans and said she wanted to be with Shinichi. Then, Shinichi tried to save Murano. Uragami pushed her off the edge and tried to hurt Shinichi. Shinichi used his arm to stop the knife and knocked out Uragami. He tried to save Murano, but she slipped and fell. Shinichi cried, but then he saw a strange thing. He saw Miggy in his mind. Miggy said that humans are kind. Miggy told Shinichi to lift Murano up. After that, Shinichi realized he was holding Murano with his right hand. He helped her up and thanked Miggy. He told Murano about the time he put a dog in the trash and how he later buried it nicely. Murano already knew about it because she knew Shinichi well. Shinichi understood that humans want to be with others their whole lives. Watch this next video. See you on the next one.